emotional, mental challenges themselves, and allow us to use that guidance that the Spirit gives us through Pope Leo XIV and Bishop Heim and all the priests that are part of our parish. Look for that guidance and help us to carry us forward. Joining me with Hail Mary.
Full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou among women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen.
The Son and the Holy Spirit.
Amen. Turn it over to you. Okay, thank you. All right, good morning. Good morning. Great to be here. I live in Fitchburg, actually, and been married 28 years, have 6 kids, and it's been great. My wife and I both grew up in the Green Bay area, and came down to school in Madison, met a great Catholic community down here, and much to my parents' disappointment, decided to settle down here, and it's been great. I love going back to Green Bay, but it was really the friendships that we made in Madison that attracted us to stay here. Just deep friendships based on the Lord, and it's been awesome. It's been awesome for our kids. We have 3 kids at St. Ambrose, and then we have one that we're homeschooling right now, and then I've got 2 in college, one in Franciscan, one at UW-Madison. So kind of has kicking and screaming a little bit, allowing my kids to leave. Some parents get excited, oh, the kid's leaving, I hate it. It doesn't feel like what I was made to do. It feels like we should all be together forever, and but they're doing great. So it's great to be here with you. My book is about friendship, but more than that, it's about evangelization and how evangelization can be fruitful in our lives without being awkward and rude. Knocking on doors, preaching on street corners, especially with our friends. So, are there any pheasant hunters here? Well, pheasant is kind of iffy in Wisconsin, but I just took my son, I went with my dad to South Dakota to hunt pheasant. That was a different thing. So I've walked these fields around Madison a decent amount, and I've probably seen 3 pheasant in the last 10 years. You kick up a lot of stuff, but not a lot of roosters. We were in South Dakota, and I think one day we kicked up 30 birds, and it was so much fun. And you can't shoot the hens, and so the hens go up, and everybody in your party's like, hey, it's a hen! And then the rooster goes up, and everyone goes, rooster, rooster! It was so much fun. My son, Daniel, who is 12, I've been working to build a more intentional connection with him because my connection with him has not been as natural as my other kids. And so he loves hunting, he loves deer hunting, he loves pheasant hunting, he loves guns. And so that's why I brought him, and it was awesome just to have that time with him. But I was thinking as I drove here, I wonder how much public land there is, because I've never hunted around Oregon, and I wonder how much public land there is. I wonder if there's some land around here that's got pheasant, and I was just thinking about that, and how, if I met one of you, and you told me, hey, there's this little parcel of public land around here that no one goes to, that they stock with pheasant, you should bring your son. I was thinking about, and this is totally separate from this talk, I was just daydreaming as I drove here about this. But it does relate to the talk, because if one of you told me that, I would be thrilled, because I want a place to go hunt pheasant that's closer than South Dakota, where I can bring my son and find some birds with my dog. And that would be awesome news to me. But I've got some friends who never picked up a gun and have no interest in pheasant hunting, and if you told them that, no matter how excited you were about it, they're not going to care. And a lot of times evangelization is like that. That we as Catholics we're telling non-hunters about awesome pheasant land, and they just don't care about it. There was a study from UCLA a few years back UCLA study of spirituality. And they polled about 100,000 young adults, and they asked them all kinds of questions. And one of the questions they asked is, do you feel guilty about anything? And almost none of them did. Almost none of the 100,000 young adults felt the sensation of guilt in their life. And I was thinking, when I read that, I was like, oh, that's interesting. So if we talk to them about Jesus died to forgive your sins, you know, that the church, through the sacrament of reconciliation, can wipe away all your sins and all your guilt, they don't care about that. It's not relevant. They're like, oh, sounds like religious mumbo jumbo. No one experiences the need in their life to be forgiven of their sins because they don't think they sin. You know, this generation, everything I do is fine, the decisions I make are fine, it's my choice. You know, it's autonomous, you're supposed to put up with me, you're supposed to accept me, you know. They just don't feel that. But then they kept asking questions, and they asked, how much meaning do you have in your life, or how much purpose, and how closely connected with people do you feel, and like different questions. And what they found is that generation in the UCLA study had an acute sense of purposelessness and meaninglessness in their life. They were tortured by that sense of like, why am I here? What am I supposed to be doing? Does my life have purpose? A lot of them had suicidal ideation. They you know, maybe weren't about to do it, but and of course we know the suicide rates during COVID went up dramatically. It also very interesting is, you know, you've heard the Surgeon General, I think it was under Biden, proclaim that there was a epidemic of loneliness in this country. And this study found that almost all of them felt this acute, gripping, gnawing sense of loneliness in their life. So it's interesting to think like Jesus saves us from our sins, but he saves us from sin more broadly. That the sin that he saves us from is not just the sin that we commit, that we feel guilty from. The sin that he saves us from is the brokenness, the overall brokenness of this world. And in loneliness, they're not sinning by being lonely, but loneliness is a result of sin, right? They're not sinning by being purposeless, by feeling meaningless, but that is a result of sin. The fact that they feel those things, the fact that loneliness is in the world, that purposelessness is in the world, meaninglessness, that's all a result of sin. That's the brokenness of this world. And it's the brokenness of this world crashing upon them in a particular way. So when I was far from the Lord, I grew up in a Christian home and wandered through dark times and, you know, habits of sin and addictions that I couldn't get out of, and I might share a little bit more about that. But when I was in that place, I did feel guilty. I felt black as a, you know, I just could not get away from it. I could not find my way back to the light. And so Jesus will forgive you of everything you've done in your life. He'll wipe it clean and renew you. That was really good news to me. But it's not good news to most of the people on this study. And so my point with all this is, I think the biggest barrier to Catholic evangelization is not that churches aren't running well. You know, it's not that we don't have nice enough fellowship halls. It's not that we haven't found the right program yet in the churches. It is, the biggest barrier is facades. The biggest barrier is the lack of deep friendships in our own life and in our culture that don't expose the real needs of people's lives. Because if we know the real needs of people's lives, if we know the real ways that God is calling them, that they want to be filled, the areas of emptiness in their life, the areas of need. The church talks about existential need. You know, the very needs of our existence. Loneliness is an existential need. We're made for communion. We're made for friendship. We're made for laughter and joy and depth in our relationships. That you have loneliness is an existential need. You need it for survival. Meaning, purpose. These are existential needs that we have. But unless we find those needs that our friends have, the deepest needs, the ways they're crying out for God, then we don't know how to share Jesus. We don't know how to evangelize. We don't know how to share good news. It's not actually good news to them. I share about, if you shared about pheasant land with me and I'm not a hunter, it's not good news. I'm completely indifferent to it. And a lot of times I think the church's message that we're sharing with people are indifferent to it. It's not tapping into their deepest needs. So a couple of years ago, I was, we all our kids were young. Like we started from baby, 2 years old, up to like 11 or something. And they're all young. And getting to church, anyone have a lot of kids here?
Final line.
Yeah.
3.
Over 2? Yeah. So those early years when you're trying to get to Mass, and and the house is chaos, and it's like demons suddenly infest your house, on a Sunday morning to like keep you from going to Mass. So on those years, we were going to this church for Mass, and we were perpetually late. We would walk in during the Gloria, and this story is in my book, but it illustrates my point. We would walk in during the Gloria every week, and we'd be the very, very, very front row with all the kneelers, and Father's right in front of us, and in the middle of winter, we'd walk in and take our winter coats off, and it was a ruckus. But there behind us was the seat where the very responsible, on-time people sat. And so every week we would be in our delinquent pew, and then they would be in their responsible pew. But side of peace, we always got to know them, and then talk to them after Mass, and then eventually we talk after Mass, and we get kicked out because there was baptism or something, and so we go out to donuts, and we talk longer there, and really got to know this family. I think I'll share now that Aristotle has these 3 categories of friendship. One is a pleasure friendship, where you just have similar hobbies and similar things that you have fun doing. So I have hunting buddies, who like to hunt. I have football. I have guys who like to watch football with me. I like, there's all kinds of, there's certain friends that I talk about gardening with. So that's a pleasure friendship. And then there's a utility friendship where you're getting work done together. And Aristotle says that's a deeper friendship. And then the deepest level is a virtuous friendship, which is not that we're perfectly virtuous, it's that we want each other's virtue. I'm willing to sacrifice for your virtue. I'm willing to sacrifice for you to be a good father. And you're willing to sacrifice for me to be a good father, to be a good husband, to be a good father, to be a good worker. And I am not looking out for my own good. I now have grown in love for you as a brother so much that I'm looking out for your good, even if it costs me. That's a virtuous friendship, the deepest friendship. So this guy and I, over all these years, developed a pleasure friendship at Mass because we shared similar, things that we like to have fun doing. I found out that they were Michigan State fans, and I didn't like that. But I did invite them over to my house because I thought it'd be fun to watch a football game together. And so their whole family came over, made pancakes for their family, and we're talking to them. And we could. And my wife and I wanted, if the Lord wanted us to help them go deeper in their faith, we wanted to help them. We weren't sure that's what the Lord wanted. We weren't sure that they needed that. They came to Mass every Sunday. He's a successful doctor. She's also working at a local company. They have 2 kids, beautiful kids, and they're going to public school. And we didn't know what the Lord wanted. So we invited them over to our house to take the relationship just a little bit deeper than donuts after Mass. And so, or pancakes, we're talking and we ask them, how did you get to the point where you're coming to Mass every Sunday? That's not always normal among Catholics. What led you to that? And they talked about a college experience and experiencing Jesus at a retreat. And the way that they talked about that, we could kind of tell that it was this powerful moment in the past that they weren't necessarily continuing to live daily. And so my wife and I thought, it seems like there might be some opportunity for them to get closer to the Lord, experience more of His joy in their lives. So we, at the end of that time, I said, hey, I have a small group of men, and if you'd like to come, we meet every other Sunday night. My wife said, I have a small group of women, if you want to come, so we invited them to our small groups, and they eagerly said, oh, that'd be awesome, I'm there, both of them. So he comes to my small group, and again, this is a guy coming to Mass every Sunday. This is a very well thought of, highly esteemed doctor in town, and someone you would never think, you would just think he's got it all together, in every area of his life because he's so successful professionally. But again, at this point, it's all I know about him is his facade. And facades are not bad. We all have facades. If you ask me how I'm doing, I probably this morning won't bare my soul with you. And if I did, it'd be super awkward. They're fine, kids are good. My boys just, I would just answer the normal, work is fine, weather's fine. I'm not going to tell you about my marital issues. I'm not going to tell you that. I already told you about my 12-year-old son, but it's actually a great place of. I will just share with you. As an example, I normally wouldn't share that 12-year-old son I have a lot of worries about. I have a keen sense of my inadequacy in that relationship. I can't connect with him. He bugs me a lot, and I know it's not right, and I'm asking the Lord to fix it. But we all have these areas where we're kind of aching, where we need the Lord. And we just don't share it with everybody. And, at a group like this, we can get past the facades. But facades are normal and they're actually very socially appropriate. So at this point, when this man came to my small group on a Sunday night, I just know his facades. I have a sense that he can go deeper in the Lord, but all I know is his facades. And, his facade of having it all together, his facade of being very successful, his facade of being a faithful Catholic. I mean, he was a faithful Catholic, but there was a lot more to the story. He came to my small group, and it was all going great. He was contributing a little bit here and there. And at the end, we said, all right, let's close in prayer. And we went around the circle, and the way we do it is we just close in our own words, spontaneously talking to the Lord. If you haven't done that before, it can be oh, this is different. I'm not used to talking to the Lord in my own words. And so we got around to him, and he just, it was quiet, awkwardly long time quiet. We're all bowing our heads, closing our eyes, and all of a sudden we realize he's not going to talk. He's not just thinking. He's stuck. So I open my eyes and I look at him, and he goes, this very successful guy looks at me and says, I don't know how to do this. And I said, oh, that's all right. Just talk in your own words. The Lord's here with us. He can hear you. Just speak whatever's on your heart. And he offers this prayer like a kindergartner. Because he just doesn't know how to do this. He's never done it before. But so humble, right? I mean, he let down his guard a little bit. So humble. This guy who is so successful, so competent, so brilliant, everything, lets down his guard a little bit and prays this beautiful kindergartner prayer. And we were just so blessed to have him there, but I knew, wow, he's got a lot more than he can grow spiritually. So I got together with him. I said, hey, do you want lunch this week? He said, yeah. So I started asking him questions about spiritual things, and he all of a sudden just shared how this marriage that looked awesome to me. I mean, she was beautiful, they're just like, got it all together. This marriage is not good. Like, they fight, they yell at each other all the time, they swear at each other, they haven't had sex in like at that point it was like 8 months, and he's dying, and he's getting into getting addicted to some sexual habits in his life to like deal with not having sex for 8 months. So it was like his life was a mess and quickly falling apart, and he needed more of the Lord. He needed more of the Lord in his marriage. He needed more of the Lord in his own life. And the reason I asked him to get together for lunch is I said, I've learned some things about prayer over the years that might be helpful to you. I'd love to share them with you if you'd be interested, because he stumbled through that prayer. That's why we got together. But it was so much more once we got beyond that facade. What was behind that facade was so much ache, so much fear for his marriage, fear for his relationship with his kids, fear about how this is going to spill over into the rest of his life. And he didn't have anybody in his life that he had shared this with. He was walking this road alone. He didn't have a group like this. He didn't have close friends. And it just showed me like, wow, like in this world, Jesus says, in this world you will have trouble. It's in John 9. I should know this by heart. Anyone know what this is? It's we can Google it right now. In this world you will have trouble, but take heart, I have overcome the world. But all of us will have trouble. All of us have trouble right now. If I just broke you into small groups today and I don't know what your relationships are like with each other, but said, hey, share a struggle that you have in your life. And let's get real. Let's get real. Let's get beyond the facades. What is a struggle that you have in life? Some of you are deeply worried about your kids. Some of you are deeply worried about your marriage. Some of you might have anxiety at work that you're carrying by yourself that you haven't told anybody about. Some of you might just have a deep sense of, discontentment with your life. Like, these are struggles that are common in the world. In this world, you will have trouble. We have trouble, we as believers. The world has trouble. They have the same trouble. And sometimes they have more trouble. But everybody in this world, the people who appear like they don't have trouble, their facades are just really good. Because everybody has trouble. In this world, you will have trouble. I have trouble right now. I have trouble in my life right now. And I alluded to some of it, and there's more. The difference between me and an atheist walking around the streets of Oregon is not that I don't have trouble. It's not that he's a sinner, and I'm getting my life together because of the Lord. He never prays. He curses the Lord. I love the Lord. No. The difference is I have trouble. We're the same. I have trouble. He has trouble. The difference is I know where to go in my trouble, and he doesn't. And the mindset of evangelization is I want to help him know where to go in his trouble. I want him to know that the church is a refuge for his trouble. That the church is a refuge for his broken marriage, for his work anxiety, for his insecurities with his relationships with kids, for his sense of unrest that he has in his life, that he feels like he's on the verge of some bad things. The church is a refuge. Jesus is a friend. And there's a community of people who can walk with him in his trouble. I know where to go. I know to find a group like you guys. I know to go to Mass. I know to go to confession. I know to go to my Bible. I know to go to prayer. I know where to go when things are falling apart in my life. That's the difference. I know where to go. He doesn't. And how can I help him get to where Jesus wants him? How can I help him find refuge in the church? Find a home in Jesus? How can I help him? I have to get beyond the facades. Until I get beyond the facades, I'm just a talking head. It's not, I don't even know to invite him to this group until I get beyond his facades. I don't know. I need a deep friendship with him. And so that book is meant to show, and I wrote it especially for men, to give a pathway to deepening relationships with your atheist coworker, so that you can find out where his unrest is and what's really good news to him. All right, that was a long intro. Any thoughts about that?
Very good. Parallels a lot of the times that we do work in this small group here, and we're able to share, thankfully, amongst each other, and it's a safe zone. And I have to ask, the cover, is that meant to be a safety net?
It's many things. The publisher picked it. I didn't particularly like it at first, but they talked it in. They thought of it as I'll make you fishers of men, a fishing net.
Okay.
And then also, thanks. They also thought of it as like it had like kind of a manly like in the military you climb you climb these nets. So they were just thinking that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
As I mentioned, we've talked different times about our Catholic faith, and our TMIY group here, and other aspects of because we have a mix of HMC here and St. Anne's from Stoughton, and we have a nice relationship there, but we've talked different times about those aspects in your life can kind of be the safety net that catches you, kind of what you alluded to, Jason, about you know where to go when times are tough.
Yeah.
You can go to your Bible or go to prayer, reach out to the gentleman that you're friends with in your small group. So yeah, thank you.
So in our small group, we meet every other week. And what we share in the small, we open in prayer, and then we go around. There's 4 of us. We just go around and share our struggles, our current struggles in the Lord, in our marriage, and whatever, and our current victories. Where are we seeing the Lord working? And going to South Dakota with my 12-year-old son is a victory. And 6 months ago, I shared my relationship with my 12-year-old son as a struggle, and shared some of the things that were going on in our relationship, because I just didn't know how to parent him. And the way I parented my other boys was not working with this kid. And one of the guys in my small group said, you got to pray about this, man. You got to double down and pray about this relationship, because this is the kind of relationship that leads to wounds. That he's going to have to deal with when he grows up. The way you're parenting him doesn't work. You need the Lord's wisdom and love to parent him differently. A brother in the small group said that to me, called me up, and it was awesome. I was like, you are right. I'm not taking this seriously enough. I can't just parent him like I feel like parenting him, which is, I feel like beating the crap out of him, but I hadn't done that, but I was being very harsh, like I had been with my other boys, and they responded well to it, but this kid was shrinking back and distancing. So anyway, just having brothers to help you through that and pray for you, and now to see I'm turning the corner with him. And the Lord is teaching me a different way of parenting him that's not soft and mushy, and he's not going to be a monster millennial, spoiled brat when he's older. He's not. But I have a different way of parenting him. So with our friends, let's think about so there's the believer relationships, and we need strong relationships with fellow believers like you guys have here. But I want us to think about an atheist, or think about a religious skeptic, a fallen away Catholic who's just bitter about the church and thinks it's all crutch, and the Pope is corrupt, and our bishop is corrupt, and everybody, organized religion is just a hoax. Just think about someone in your life like that, or maybe they're religiously indifferent. They walked away from the church, and you see them, and you may be your friends from high school, or you have a friend, a coworker, or a neighbor. I have a neighbor who's a fallen away Catholic, and I pray for him a lot. And so think about that person. How do we go about the task of evangelizing them? Our goal is to make disciples of all nations. Our goal is to spread the gospel everywhere. Our goal is, our hope is that everybody in our life becomes Catholic. You know, we can't just snap our fingers. So what do we do? I wanna propose that our mission as a church, our mission is my mission is not to get my neighbor, my fallen away Catholic, back to Mass. I mean, ultimately that's a great mission, but that's not. I have invited him. I've invited him to Mass. Hey, we're going to the Easter Vigil because I know he grew up. You know, and I'm like, hey, you want to come with us? And then we have a neighborhood party afterwards. No. You know, he always says no. So what is my mission with him? My mission is to deepen my friendship with him. That's my mission. Deepen my friendship. Right now, we have a very neighborly friendship. If I walk out to the mailbox and he's walking out to the mailbox, we'll talk in the street for 7 to 10 to 15 minutes. We'll just sit there, you know, in our slippers, you know, hey, how's it going? How's it working? We connect really easily. So in the book are these categories of friendship from Aristotle, which I do think is helpful. We first build a pleasure friendship with most people. It starts because we have something in common and we enjoy having fun together. Do you remember the next level? Then we move that relationship, and we can do this intentionally, to a utility friendship. So that's where I invite my neighbor over to help me with my deck. Or I say, hey, I have nothing going on this Saturday. You know, is there something you need help with? Or I hear about, or I see a project happening in the front, like he just cut down a bunch of his trees. And I was out of town, you know, when he did it, but let's just say I was in town and I see him start to do that. I go over there with my work gloves and I help him. We can intentionally move friendships from pleasure to utility. And when we do, they go deeper, and you can see that. Like, we have great conversations on the street in our slippers, but if I go over there and work and help him haul wood and cut those trees, that friendship's going deeper. Like, and we may not have a deeper conversation, but that friendship just went deeper. So I think Aristotle's right. It goes from pleasure to utility. Then how do you move it from utility to virtuous? And I want to propose another pathway to think about when you're trying to build that deeper friendship of mutual sacrifice and mutual vulnerability. So a lot of times our friendships start by talking about the things of life, natural things. And these are the conversations of facades, which is, again, good. It's good that we have facades. We talk about the weather, we talk about work, we talk about politics, we talk about, what are other things we talk about? We talk about the kids, we talk about sports. You know, we all have like these standard things that we talk about. If I meet someone at Ace Hardware, you know, I'm talking to the clerk or I'm talking to some guy there, maybe I'm talking about the yard project, you know, that I'm doing, like, we talk about that too. Like, these are all good conversations to have. And I would say these are conversations just about the natural things of life. If I want to take a relationship deeper toward a virtuous friendship, I want to instigate some reflection into this conversation. So I want to help my neighbor reflect on his life. A good question, you know, so I'll say, how is your job? How is your job? And he said, that's fine, it's been busy. This is natural, right? This is natural. It's been busy, my boss is a jerk, I really like this, I really like that, you know, I have this coworker, blah, blah, blah. That's all natural. But I can ask another question to make it reflective. And I can say, have you ever thought about leaving your job? Have you ever thought about taking something else? How do you feel at the end of a week? How do you feel on Sunday when you're going to work on Monday? How do you feel on Sunday? Do you feel a sense of dread? Do you feel excitement? I can ask him a question that will help him reflect on his experience at work. That takes it deeper. And almost everybody will do that. I can do the same thing with family. You know, I can say, how's your family? And at first, we all know the conversation. Kids are busy. My wife's picked up another job, and that's been a little stressful. When I say, "How's your marriage?" Now I might, if I have a good relationship, I'm not going to just plop this on a stranger in the street, But if I have a good relationship and he and I have been connecting in our slippers, and then I helped him with the tree, and it's a utility friendship, and now we're connecting, and maybe he's on my front porch and we're having a beer together. How's your family? How's your marriage? I can ask that. That's a fair question. That's actually a caring question. It's a loving question. Even to an unbeliever, how's your marriage? Have you realized how many marriages are bad? Like in your own life, in this parish, out in the world. I mean, the devil's having a heyday with marriages. How's your marriage? I do not expect anymore to hear it's good. Like, that is so rare. Even among people who come to this parish every Sunday for Mass. How's your marriage? It's really good. They polled adults in the United States, and I can't remember, but somebody, I think it was a Pew or Barna, polled husbands and wives around the country, and they asked, "Is your marriage really good?" And only like 27% of Americans said their marriage was really good. So how's your marriage is a really good question to move from the natural to the reflective. Or how's your relationship with your kids? That's another move from the natural to reflective. You can do this with anybody. You can do this with atheists. You can do this with anybody. Think about how to get them to reflect on their life. Because when they start sharing their reflections in their life, the facades are lowering. I just want to know, what is good news to them? Are they a pheasant hunter? Can I tell them about pheasant land? Is that going to be good? Are they a musician? Can I tell them about a new music that I've been listening to? What is the good news to them? And I'm talking, those are in the natural. I'm talking about spiritual analogies. Do they need to know? What aspect of Jesus do they need to know about? And I don't know until I get them reflecting. And then, so natural, reflective, spiritual. At some point, I can ask them about spiritual things. I like, and I did this with that couple that came over to our house for pancakes. I love asking about people's upbringings. It's not now. It's, were you raised in the faith? Did you have religious parents? Did you grow up in a religious home? I can ask an atheist, an agnostic. I can ask a gender confused person in my life, like anybody. I can ask that to anybody, and the answer I get back tells me a lot about where they're at with God. I can hear whether they hated it. I can hear whether they're wounded by it. I can hear whether it was a good experience, but I've kind of fallen away. It tells me a lot. And you can ask, when you take a friendship from talking about natural things to reflection, to reflective things, then when you take it to the next, almost always my next question to take a friendship into the spiritual conversation is, were you raised in a religious home? Were you raised in the faith? With a Catholic, I'll ask, did you have any sort of youth group? Did you go on any retreats as a kid? Because I just want to hear their impressions of, their experience. But when I take it from natural to reflective to spiritual, very quickly after that, I start to get a sense for what's going to be good news in their life. And I'm committed to evangelization, but I don't do it. I don't share the gospel that much, except in my work. But like in my normal relationships, like I don't know with my neighbor across the street when I'll have the chance to share the gospel with him. Because I still don't know what's good news to him, really. I haven't found it out yet. we're still trying to get there. I mean, sometimes this takes years with relationships in the world. It takes years. If you jump the gun with it, they're never going to want to hear from you again. I mean, that's the power of, like, probably not, this group's probably too deep for, like, your atheist coworker. But every once in a while, you guys could host a barbecue in the backyard where you could invite your atheist coworker. You can move relationships faster with things like that. But, like, one-on-one at work, this is going to go pretty slow. Yeah.
I got a question, Jason. One of the things that I'm seeing a lot of is a lot more people moving from the Catholic faith into a different, these Bible churches.
Yeah.
And some of that's really growing. And lots of you probably seen people within our church that are no longer coming, Catholics, born and raised that way, and now moved on to it. What do you think? Do you think there's more friendship? Do you think there's more socialization than what the Catholic is doing?
Oh, for sure.
Is that what you think?
Yeah,
it is?
better preaching too.
You think so? Okay.
Oh, yeah. I mean, our preaching in general is horrible. Like, at almost every Catholic church, it's really miserable. Either it's over people's heads or it's nothing. It's a big nothing burger. The homilies at Mass. You go to these churches, you're going to hear really... And when people are polled, who left the Catholic Church and went to Protestant churches, mostly it's about friendship and community, mostly.
Okay.
But the second reason is the preaching. They were just longing for some good teaching.
Okay.
We hear really good teaching on podcasts. We hear really good teaching on talks. Father Mike Schmitz is great, Father Bishop Barron, all these guys. But our experience at Mass is not usually the tip of the iceberg. So that's a big reason people leave. But I don't know God's plan. I mean, I want to get to know them. I want to hear about their experience. I want to tell them about this group. I want to tell them there's other stuff in the Catholic Church. You thought it was, you left something that is actually a lot better than you thought. But
The value of the small groups is that you can make more personalized.
Exactly.
You can do that and allow.
Yes. Yeah. So that's what I would hope to share with you. I want every man to know that the mission of evangelization is friendships. And the mission of friendship is to get beyond the facades. And if you get beyond the facades and you hear about people's bad news so that you know how to share good news, Jesus is going to use you to bring people back to him. We just don't know how to do that usually. So that's kind of my main message I wanted to share. And I know I want to wrap up by 7:30. We have 10 minutes. Are there any questions, thoughts? Yeah.
I was just going to add to this. This small group that I lead, we just got done reading Beautiful Eucharist. And it says what you just said, but in a different way. That evangelization will not take place unless the person you're trying to evangelize is receptive to receiving a message.
Yes.
And so if you go in there and think you're going to start to preach, you're probably going to lose more than you win.
Yeah.
And so it is what it is. It is playing the game, and it is playing oftentimes a waiting game. And for me, I think the key is knowing where can I get in a friendship where I know that then that person will accept me telling him things that he may not agree with or want to talk about right away, but he's not standoffish. So it's really the power of building and sustaining relationship is the key to evangelization.
Yes, and you just reminded me, the other thing about this that we can do to be ready in those friendships is stop. It's good to learn about our faith, but the thing that the Lord's going to use in our friendships is our story. And we all have stories of Jesus being good news in our life. We all have stories about times of incredible anxiety, stress, didn't know what was going to happen, guilt, sin, confession, experiences of the Eucharist, experiences with the Scriptures, experiences with a priest, experiences with friends at church and how they supported me. We all have good news of Jesus in different ways. And one of the things if you start listing those things in your life, like this, if you went home today or tomorrow in your prayer time and started listing times in your life when Jesus was good news to you, and you start naming all the riches of our church and all the experiences of our church, start naming those things Jesus, then we have good news to share. Then I'm not sharing the truth of the Eucharist. I'm sharing my story with the Eucharist. That's a lot different. One seems like preaching to people. If I share the doctrine of the Eucharist, if I share a defense of the Eucharist with my friend who just left the Catholic Church and went to the Protestant Church, if I share a defense, an apologetic, a doctrine of the Eucharist, that comes off as aggressive and off-putting. If I share my experience with the Eucharist, like, oh man, you're at that church, I heard the preaching down there, it's great, you would affirm that, and then you would say, I just could never leave the Catholic Church. I've had such powerful experiences with the Eucharist. I know maybe you haven't, but just last week, this happened. Like when we share a story of the Eucharist, that's a lot different than sharing a doctrine of the Eucharist. And that's true for everything. So just coming up with a list of ways, little and big, that the Lord's been good news to us. When we have that, we have a little toolbox that the Lord will use. He'll start giving us opportunities to share. So thank you for, I just thought of that, yeah. Other questions or thoughts before we wrap up?
How do you manage, I guess more as an introverted person and a person who, when I have a friendship, it's got to be deep.
Yes.
Like on my phone, I can't keep more than 100 contacts.
Yeah,
because it's overwhelming for me.
Yeah.
If you get over 100, I have to manage it down.
Yeah.
And so how do how do you build those deep relationships when you can only handle so many people
Yes.
at one time to get to the place?
Well, I think that's really important, and I said in the book that we have to be, we can be friends with a lot of people. You get a pleasure friendships with a lot of people.
Yes.
You can have utility friendships with less, but still decent amount. Aristotle says you can only have 2 or 3 virtuous friends. I don't know what the right number in our culture is. That was what he said in ancient Greece, but it's smaller. It's going to be small. And if we're not choosing, we spread ourselves thin. We never have the opportunity to get beyond the facade with anybody. So I think actually your proclivity toward less friendship is right. I think not less pleasure and utility friendships, but being choosy about virtuous friendships. Otherwise, we never get anywhere with anybody. So I would say we do want to. And honestly, the reason why it's taken me so long with my neighbor is I don't have time yet to build a virtuous friendship with him. So I pray for him a lot. I pray for him, almost every day. I pray for him. Every Mass I'm praying for him. I'm always praying for him. But I don't have time to do what I need to do with him. I need to camp with him. I need to spend some regular time with him. He's not a hunter. I need something like that where we can have like 4 hours together, where I can move the conversation from natural to reflective to spiritual. And we have a good enough relationship I could. I just don't have time right now for that friendship. So I think that's a really good
So
point.
you're suggesting kind of focus on the ones that are deeper?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Or
You gotta work on those other ones too.
yeah, but I'm always praying like, Lord, if you want me to spend time with him, make time for it.
Yeah.
Make time for it. But I felt like his priority for me is my 12-year-old son right now. And so yeah, I would pray about who do you want me focusing on? Jesus, before he chose the 12, spent all night in prayer. So you see Jesus asking the Holy Spirit to lead him to the right men to focus on. So yeah, that's a great point. Yeah.
Mark, I'll tag on to what you started to say. One thing I think that we, as a Catholic Church, are lacking in is we come to church to go to Mass.
Mm-hmm.
We don't necessarily come to church to experience not only God, but one another.
Mm-hmm.
I play drums for this church, and at times I'll sub for the Lutherans when their drummer is out. And the very first time I went there, I was surprised. Everyone had a name tag, and no one wore their coat. They took it off.
Yeah.
And I asked them, and I said, because I was amazed at that, and I said, why do you wear the name tags? I knew why, but I wanted to ask. I said, we want to get to know their name so that we don't have to wear name tags anymore. They got to know people.
Yeah.
And we take our coats off so that we're not ready to leave as soon as we get there. So I think, you know, I'm going to put my working hat on. Before I retired, I was in experiential marketing, which is all about getting inside the consumer's head.
Yeah.
If we're truly recruiting, we need to get in everyone's head, but they all view things differently. And so to come in and just to view this as an obligation and a task to cross off the list, you're not just missing Christ's love, you're missing the chance to create bonds. And I think that's where we lack.
Well, yeah, I think it does start with, you know, the men in this room, and other women in this church who already have the love of Jesus, you know, kind of boiling over in their life. And what happened to me and my wife started at Mass. Oh, and I didn't share it. This guy, like, now it's been probably 2.5 years since I had that conversation with him. He and his wife are in counseling. It looks like their marriage is going to last, which was not a given. His relationship with his kids is awesome these days. He's been completely delivered from his sexual addictions that he was starting to get wrapped up in. I mean, the Lord has worked wonders in his life. But it all started by me taking a relationship at Mass, to your point, not having my coat on, hanging out with him after Mass, hanging out with the donuts, building a friendship at Mass. And if all of us would help to build those relationships at Mass, it's a good place to start. You know, sometimes we feel like we're already overwhelmed with the friendships we have, but even so, you don't know how the Lord's going to use you at Mass to help other Catholics experience the riches of our faith. So that's a great point. But honestly, I have to work on it. I just feel like I'm so busy. I just feel like busting a move home. The Packer game is on. Like, it's a mortification. It's like asceticism to stay at Mass for me some Sundays. My wife wants to talk to everybody and their brother, and I'm like, let's go! Like, you know, but it's a really good sacrifice to offer for the Lord for mission. Yeah.
So
all right, well, thank you. Thanks for your time. Yeah.
I just have a real quick question. I employ your techniques, trying to be friends to people and help them all that. But what I find sometimes is I get dispirited. So how do you deal with, you know, not being able to make progress?
Yeah. Well, it is a mindset. In one of the chapters, I talk about patience, and God is patient. And I'm, with my oldest son at UW-Madison, I mean, he's doing fine in his faith right now, but I want more for him. And it's just he's not moving, you know? And so I'm having to trust in the Lord and be patient. And so this peaceful urgency is what I've heard the Lord. I've heard people talk about that with Jesus. He had a peaceful urgency. He knew he had 3 years. He had a lot to get done in 3 years. He knew he was going to go to the cross. He knew he had a limited amount of time. He was urgent, but he was peaceful. Or patient urgency is another way. So I try to keep that mindset with my son, and I think we have to always pray that we don't rush it, that we don't get impatient, that we don't force it with people, that we just wait for the Lord to open doors and we walk through them. So yeah, I struggle with that as well. But the Lord will break through, and I like the analogy I use in the book is the Grand Canyon, which I think is a 2 billion year project of the Lord's. He was patient. I mean, he could have done it now, and but there were times, and scientists say that there were times when huge boulders were unleashed on the canyon, and the waters would push them down, and they would bang against the side, and you would have like 10,000 years of progress happen in a day. You know, so there were, I think there are times when we have breakthroughs with people, but it feels like a million years waiting for them, which is where I'm at with my son. So yeah, just trusting the Lord and being patient, a patient urgency. Yeah, that's a great question.
Excellent. Thank you.
All right,
for being
thank you.
here, Jason. Appreciate it.
Thanks for inviting me.
So the books are available.